Alright, this is a bit of a solemn video presentation. In fact, the king is dead. That is the king of talkback radio. Though I'm sure Carl Sandilands may disagree. No, but John Law's passing away at the age of 90 is a thing to be respected and to be given a moment of silence. Not that we could do that here, it'd be very awkward in this presentation. No, but John Law's built a career on talkback radio through 70 years of hard work, hard and fast talking, and that is his legacy. Now, I'm not going to put together a bio here. The mainstream medias have already done that, and a quick troll through YouTube seems to confirm that. In fact, the bios have all been updated, and they're just waiting for that precious little moment of passing of notable people. It's a practice I thought a little bit creepy, really, but I guess it's up to date and on hand for the minute the moment occurs. Now, in fact, it's a formula that they use in their presentation that I think is just so impersonal and clinical. You know, it's worse than a scientist explaining how gut bacteria works or the like. You know, it's predictably, boring in its delivery. No, my little presentation today is from someone who's been touched. No, not in that way, but has been left with an impression of both awe and wonder of his charismatic approach to the common folk and the gelling of that reciprocation that endured, which ensured, of course, the elevation of his status and the successful building of his brand, no doubt. Now, it's very much a lot like Trump, actually. He knew his audience, he knew how to reach out to them, he knew what made them tick, and maybe more importantly, what ticked them off, to get the reaction. Now, in fact, Lawsy has upset listeners so much as to foster debate and challenge his spoken words, which, of course, obviously increases his ratings and controversy, sometimes, to a fever pitch at a national level, which I guess is why he became a national broadcaster back in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, that I can recall, which I was a part of at the time. And now he has set the formula, that is to set the tone of how talkback radio would be conducted from then on. This is all part of the talkback game, of course, and he was, one of the first shock jocks, if not the first shock jock in Australia. So sorry, Kyle, and sorry equally, Jonesy and Hadley, Zamanik, now deceased, and Bob Rogers, also deceased, and many other associated friends of a similar persuasion in the broadcast industry. Now, Lawsy was Australia's true shock jock, talkback entrepreneur, to my reckoning. So why am I here making this little video tribute today? For a couple of reasons, really. Most notably to respect the man, who was, as we all are, both with our successes and failings. We're all human, and we have limited time on this little planet of ours. And as someone who had the honour of meeting the man back in the late 90s while working in a local radio, this is where this little video is erupting. Now, I know my little encounter is but a drop in the ocean of the encounters that Lawsy has clocked up over the eons of his radio broadcasting, and which he has done. So I'm sure he has signed many a book and many a photograph, album cover, and any other thing with his photograph or name attached to it that was shoved in front of him for his little personal squiggle. But my edition here today is from my heart and my personal tribute. Now, not to mention, I do have an autographed copy of his cookbook, the John Law's Barbecue Cookbook, which he released in 1996, to me. I also have a coffee mug with his name emblazoned upon it. and a little bit of advertising paraphernalia from the station that I worked with. I don't know if you can see his image in there, but anyway, I'll add that later. Now, while I was doing my little stint in local radio, not as an official DJ, though I did a number of midnight to dawn shifts, the graveyard shift as it was known, and these were on the weekend, to exercise some presentation talents, or at least I tried to. I still fall way short of any professional presenter. Not that I was trying to be one, but I guess if anything, more than anything, is to build confidence, hopefully, which is coming across today to you. Now, our little radio network at the time had just purchased 2 defunct-ish AM radio stations, which were once blazing headliners back in the 40s and 30s when they started. No, they had demised because of FM at the time being so strong. Maybe it still is, I don't know. Or perhaps streaming now may be the only avenue that has taken over all broadcast. In fact, I keep pondering, where is broadcast going, not just radio. I think radio does have a place because you could listen to it in the car while you're travelling, but TV is the one that worries me, but that's another story for another video. So I came along at the time when they were re-establishing the stations in the local Canberra market. My departure from another media-ish environment led me to try my hand in radio, although I had been involved in community radio from 1976 while I was in high school. So the lure of commercial commercial radio and broadcasting was always there. Now, television was also one of those lures, but that's outside this video too. Not that I went anywhere near that industry. So I digress. Now, John Laws came to Canberra for 2 book signings just before Christmas, or 2 Christmases on 2 different years, 1996 and 1998. Now, for some unknown reason, management at our station chose me to greet and kind of chaperone Mr. Laws from the airport to the book signing venue at the Belconnen Mall at the time, just outside of Collins Booksellers, I think it was. And then we went on to a luncheon at Gold Creek Village that we had arranged and held for him, where we invited a lot of the advertising people who were supporters of his show and, of course, contributed to our station for the advertising revenue. And he was flanked by the Pan Macmillan representative for the book side of things and his personal assistant, whose name still eludes me. I was drilled at the time not to call her Bronwyn, but it was very, very similar, like-ish in sound. A little bit like Lizbeth instead of Elizabeth, if you know what I mean. So I still can't remember it in the back of my head what it was, and I don't know why that keeps troubling me. It keeps coming back to me, saying, because I try to remember things, and memory is really all I have sometimes these days. So I do exercise that. That was one of the little exercises. Now, that encounter in 1996 with Lawsy, he then returned for another book signing 2 years later at the Tuggeranong Hyperdome in 1998. Again, this was around Christmas time. I'll show you a little bit of vision here at this point. So I had a couple of encounters with the man, not to mention as part of the sales routine for advertising for the station. Now, Lawsy, together with Alan Jones, Stan Zamanik, they were our 3 pillars of strength at the time. For our radio station, and why to re-establish radio or AM radio in Canberra when FM was obviously the way to go with all the young'uns. When I say young'uns, 30s-ish. So I still hold a couple of souvenirs, as I said, the cookbook, the coffee mug, and the placard. Though my encounter with him and that industry was brief. It was only for about 3 years, but it all still left an impression and a positive one on me, which is, I guess, another reason why and where this is coming from. So I'd also like to take this opportunity to express my condolences to his family, and I am sorry for their loss. And this extends to a lot of older Australians too, who were part of his era, and thus an extension to that family in a sense. may he rest in peace, and maybe the next time we encounter thunder, it may just be his booming voice rumbling from the heavens, reminding us of his golden tonsils. God bless.